On an island off the coast of Maine, a man is found dead. There is no identification on the body, only the dog work of a pair of local newspapermen and a graduate student in forensics turns up any clues, and is more than a year before the man is identified. And that's just the beginning of the mystery, because the more they learn about the man and the baffling circumstances of his death, the less they understand. Was it an impossible crime, or something stranger still? Hi, and welcome to That Girl Reads. I'm that girl, and I read. So, for this month, the book that I've read, if you watched my last review, you know that I randomly pick a book through the spin wheel, and the book that was chosen was called The Colorado Kid by Stephen King. And this is one of his hard case books. And it's a crime novel. And I didn't know that he did crime novels. And this book, for pages, it is 180 pages total for the book, for the actual story. But there's other little like letters and inserts and stuff like that, which makes the book longer, but it's not. So this is a very short book. So 180 pages total. I mean, I honestly read this in 1 week, but that's because I was doing other things and stuff like that. But if you have time, you could honestly read this book in a day. This is one of the books that you can read in a day. And, you know, it's not even that thick, if you can see. Not thick at all. So, you know, if you have the time, you could probably read this, maybe knock it out in a few hours. But I just took a week to do it, just to kind of give me time enough to understand what the book is about. So let's get into it. So from what I read from the synopsis, this book is a crime mystery. So what is it about? It's about this dead body that was found on the beach. Two teenagers were out frolicking on the beach late at night, and they see a man laying up against a trash can. So they think he is asleep and all this stuff, till they look closer, and then they realize, oh, he's passed out. And until one of the teenagers decides to touch him, and he falls over, and they realize he is dead. Now, this is the thing that the synopsis kind of makes it seem. It makes it seem like the murder mystery is current. Actually, it happened over 20 years ago. So it happened sometime in the early 80s. And the two main characters in this story, one of the two main characters, three main characters, but the two main characters in the story is telling it to this graduate student who's an intern. And it's more in the like early 2000s, something like that, more in the 2000s. So the setting for this place is called Moose Lick Island. Yes, Moose Lick Island. That's a name. That's all I have to say about that. That's the location of the book. And it's a small little local island where everybody knows everybody, and they did not know this guy. So the main characters, we have, like I said, we have three main characters. Our head leader main character is Vince Teague. He is 90 years old. Yes, I will repeat, he is 90 years old, and he owns his own newspaper. He owns his own newspaper, and he, I don't know, started up years ago with his partner David Bowie, and he's 65 years old. So these are some old men who's been in the game for a very long time, that's seen so many things, and yeah, so now they run a newspaper because it gives them a chance to kind of investigate, as well as find out what's going on, or even just let other people in the town and other local places and outside their little small island and stuff, what's happening. And so now we have our third main character, which is Stephanie McCann. She's 22 years old, and she's a graduate student in journalism. And so she is kind of under the wing of these two older fellows and she's learning from them. And so this is when it gets into them telling the story about the Colorado kid. I'm gonna just jump into the Rose and Thorn that I had with the book. And so Rose means things that are great, wonderful, that I like. And a thorn means things that, you know, prickly, doesn't feel right, not that great. So let's go into the Rose. So what I did like about the book is, of course, I always go into about the setting. I like the setting, the atmosphere, the local people, the style. Stephen King does a great job of writing about the style, how they speak, the lingo, the language. I think that is, it really brings you in and puts you right in the place of the actual island. You really get the vibe, you get the atmosphere. So I love that. I love the characters. They each bring their own little element to the book. They each of them do. And the bickering back and forth between David and Vince, because they act like an old married couple. They act like an old married couple. And it adds it lightens up the mood, because, you know, this is a murder case. So it lightens up the mood. And also Stephanie McCann, I like her character. She's, you know, she's not an irritating character, because sometimes you can get characters that are very irritating and don't want to listen. She is there to listen. She is like a student. They are the teacher, and she is learning so much as possible. And they like her as much as she likes them. And, you know, she's from the city. And so this is a completely different realm for her. So I kind of like her character, because it's kind of like us in a way, like we as the readers are her, because of the fact that, you know, we've never been here, we're not locals, and we're going to be hearing about this murder case or possible murder case for the first time, and try to find out what happened, what's going on. Another thing that I liked about the book as well, I think it did very well, was it did lay out all the clues. I'll give you that. It did lay out all the clues. There was a lot of different, there was more characters in the story, but they were more like, I would say, like, they were just more of like there in place they were more there in place just to kind of add to how they were trying to train and teach Stephanie about what makes a good story and what doesn't make a good story. What are people looking for when it comes to reading articles in the newspapers or magazines or whatever, and what's things that people just do not want to know. And so I think I think Stephen King did a really good job with that, the other characters in the story, having all the clues, different clues laid out, so that we can also make our own interpretation of what's going on. Which, probably me saying that, yeah, it's gonna lead into the con. So the con for this, it was it took a while to get to the point. And I'm like, I feel like I'm taking a while to get to the point. It took forever to kind of get to the action. I shouldn't say to the point, but to the action of it. Like, I know we have to have character build up, but I don't think character build up should be so long that to really get down to the juiciness of a crime mystery should start on chapter 8. Chapter 5 is when they actually start talking to Stephanie about this murder mystery. That's when they actually start talking to her about it. It's in chapter 5. But when it gets down to the juicy details about this man, particularly about the Colorado kid and what possibly happened to him, what didn't happen to him, what is his name, what happened, where is he from? I mean, Colorado kid kind of gives it away. He is from Colorado. Does he have a family? Is he a loner? Is he homeless? Does he have a job? Those things didn't even get into it until chapter 8. So I was like, the whole time I was reading it, I was like, okay, can we get to it? Like, I understand that it was trying to teach you along the way, like along with Stephanie, which I felt like Stephanie is a representation of us as the audience, as the reader. But I was ready for them to get to it, because I'm thinking, like, it's called a Colorado Kid, so we know something that happened. Like, let's go, let's get to it. 1-2 chapters, we can talk about the town, we can get to know the main characters and stuff like that, which is only really 3, because the other characters are maybe people they met in passing, like at the diner, and the rest are old characters that are dealing with the actual murder mystery that happened over 20 years ago. So some of these people are not even doing the same occupation, or might not even be alive anymore. So I was like, okay, we can kind of get to it a little bit. So that was my number 1 con. I wouldn't necessarily say, I guess you could say it's a slow burner. It just really takes its time. Maybe that's what Stephen King wanted to do, because, you know, these are older men and they want to take their time and really let us know, as well as Stephanie know, because this is a local thing that happened in their town that nobody else knows about. And I get they wanted her to know every detail so that she can make her own conclusions in the end. But oh my gosh, it just needed to pick up the pace. Definitely it was already a short book, but I'm like, come on, pick up the pace. Another major con is, and I'm just gonna get to it, I'm gonna tell you straight, no chaser. You are not gonna find out what is going to happen in the end of this book. I'm gonna give it to you. I am not gonna sit here and pretend this, that, and other. You are not going to find out what happens in this book. I'm being very honest with you. This book is kind of like the idea of Seinfeld. You know, Seinfeld it's a show about nothing. This book was pretty much about nothing in a way, because you're not going to find out what's going to happen. You're not going to find out if the Colorado Kid was murdered, or if he possibly just choked on something, because they found him on the beach and everything else. Like, when you read the clues, he could have just choked or had a heart attack or whatever, or somebody murdered him. You know, like I said, it was leaving you up to interpretation. Now, sometimes it's good to have, like, I like books that kind of leave you into interpretation, but still give you these little things that you kind of know who the killer is or what actually happened. Here, it was completely blank. Like, it was just like a blank piece of paper, clean slate, and you're just jotting down the clues and you're trying to make connections where connections don't really exist in the story, in this book. So that was one of the major comments I have. After hearing that, if you don't want to listen to the rest of my review, that is perfectly fine. But I just wanted to be very honest and say that we're not going to find out what happens. We're not going to find out what happens. The only thing we're going to find out is the man's name, if he has family, if he had his occupation. That's pretty much it. Maybe what time he probably went out there to the beach, when he ate, what he did, possibilities, but nothing. You're not going to find nothing more about the Colorado Kid, which kind of goes back to something that one of the main characters had mentioned in the story. And he told Stephanie that when he writes articles and things, he writes articles on things that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And he says this story has a beginning and it has a middle, but it has no end. And he was just like, it's a story that's not a story. And that's why he told it, because it's so not far-fetched, but it's too many pieces that cannot cohesively go together. You can try to put them together, but it'd be like forcing it, and you're not even sure if that's the right piece. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. You have all these little pieces and things like that that's supposed to make a bigger picture for everything, but at the same time, you're not even sure if those pieces are the correct pieces that's supposed to go in there, because we are not 100% guarantee that that's the right thing. I'm going to do my bookmark rating review, where I will hold up a bookmark that represents what I feel about the book. So the bookmark rating I'm going to give The Colorado Kid by Stephen King is the Ace Ventura Award. And this is the Alrighty Award. Alrighty then. And the reason why I gave it an Alrighty Award is because I have a love-hate relationship for this Colorado Kid book. I have a love-hate relationship. I'm being very honest. I have a love-hate relationship. Like I said, I love the characters. You have these older characters on here who have all this knowledge, all this history, all the stuff that they've done seen, and they're able to give this to this young 22-year-old woman, and now she's gonna have that knowledge, as well as she bringing something new to the table and her own ideas. So I mean, it's just fabulous. I love that. And I love the scenery, I love the imagery, I love the language that they use, you know, because they have their own little island language. And you know, the test that they give her, which is also like was testing me to see if, you know, I could kind of understand what makes a good story, what doesn't, what are people looking for. I love that part about it. I love that part. But the thing I hate the most, and they set you up for this, but like I said, maybe it's my fault because I was being naive, but there's no conclusion. There is no ending. You're not going to find out anything. Only thing you're going to know to really find out that has nothing to do with the Colorado Kid, you're just gonna through the like narration of Stephanie find out like what happens to Vince and what happens to David and what she decides to do with her life. Does she decide to stay on the island? Does she decide to go? Whatever like that. And like I said, it could just because I was going into this being naive and I was like, oh, a murder mystery, you know, read this. But yeah, it just doesn't have an ending. It's a lot of talking, a lot of researching, a lot of clues, but there is no concrete answer. And it's not even something that when you watch it, there's like a lot of pieces and you can put it together. And then and it's like something that's leading up to that and like pushing you toward that. Oh, well, there's nothing like that. It's literally out in the open, which I know a lot of people would say, well, that's more realistic in real life, you know, about a lot of murder cases and stuff, that it's so bizarre and so weird and so out there that we'll never find out the truth of what actually and really happened, because it's so out there. It's beyond pretty much like belief. And so it's like realistic. And I understand that there's nothing wrong, which is why I said I have a hate-love relationship, because realistically, yeah, this is possible. But since I'm like, well, it's a book. I'm like, it's a book. Can't you just kind of like, because these characters are not real. And I'm just kind of like, can't you kind of nudge us a little bit more toward an actual conclusion? But hey, I guess not. But that's the reason why it's really, this book is about nothing. It really, like, I can't say it's not about nothing. It's something, but it just doesn't have an ending. Yeah, so that's why I'm giving it the Alrighty Award with Ace Ventura. I'm giving it it was all right. It was okay. Because I have a hate-love relationship, so I'm in between right now. So this is like an equivalent of maybe 2.5 stars or 3 solid stars. So just to kind of, if you like to go by stars or something like that, star ratings, it's like an equivalent of three solid stars or 2.5 stars. Because like I said, I'm teetering back and forth with this story. And I will be honest with you, because you know, you're my family now. This is one of probably my least favorite books by Stephen King. I'm like, I'm kind of disappointed. I'm really disappointed in this book because it could have been a whole lot better. I mean, like I said, I understand. I get where he was trying to go, or maybe I get where he was trying to go, but I'm just like, that's gonna have to be a no for me, dog. It's gonna have to be a no for me. I was really disappointed in this book. If you love Stephen King like I love Stephen King, and you like murder mysteries, read the book for yourself, because you might read it and say, you know what, I really love this book. I love how he did this. Like I said, the style of it is amazing. The style of it is great. I love that. It keeps you wondering and going, and then you find out more information about the Colorado Kid, the man himself, and it keeps you there. But just be forewarned. Like the book forewarns you. The characters tell you in the book, there is no ending. There is the beginning, there is the middle, but there is no end to this story, which is why it's a story and not a story, because there is no end. So that is all I'm going to say about that. I'm going to end that part of the review. So we are here for the next part, which is the spin wheel. So this is where I use this app. It's the spin wheel, and I put in books that I've had on my inventory or roster, or, you know, whatever, on my list to read, and I haven't gotten to it. And so I put them down on my spin wheel, and I just let it randomly pick what's gonna happen. So let's see. So it seems like the spin wheel either wanted to play a little joke on me, or maybe just wanted to, you know, wanted me to finish these hard cases by Stephen King. So it looks like I'm going to be reading Joyland by Stephen King. I have the book with me. So Joyland by Stephen King. That is the next book I'm going to be reading. And let me tell you something I didn't mention earlier. I do love the cover of these books. They make me want to read it. Now, like I said, this is the reason why I picked these books. I picked them at random last year, by the way. And I just love the color. So this is the Colorado Kid. I love the color of it. The cover of it. I think it looks great. It makes you want to read. Makes you want to read the book. So yeah, looks like I'm going to be reading Joyland by Stephen King. So this is the next book. If you want to join me and read another hard case book with me, hopefully this hasn't teetered you away from my channel or from reading hard case, you know, books. Maybe it's the universe trying to tell me that this book is better, and it's like a redemption book that is going to redeem itself. Maybe that's what it's trying to say. Which is why the spin wheel chose Joyland. Because, I mean, yeah, I put it on there, but I let it randomly pick. There's other books on there. So, so yeah, maybe it's a redemption. It's time for redemption. Maybe this book could be better. A lot better. And have an actual conclusion and ending to it. But yeah, so here is the review, my final review or book review of The Colorado Kid by Stephen King. Read it. I won't say weep. Read it and weep. But read it and, you know, draw your own conclusion. Okay. So, read with me or just wait till hear my review. All right. See you for my next book review. Ta-ta for now. Ta-ta.